Hello, everyone. My name is Para, and I have been playing WoW for most of my adult life. And today I want to talk about an experience I recently had playing Cata Classic. Um, I loaded up into Cata Classic, and I was shocked that I had a feeling that I had no idea I was going to feel. And that is, I really miss the looking for dungeon tool. The looking for dungeon tool was introduced like Wrath of Lich King or something like that, and it's essentially just a way of being able to go into a menu and queue into a dungeon, and the dungeon is about the level of your character. It's kind of tuned to the power level of your character at that current level. So in original WoW, in classic WoW, vanilla WoW, you would have to find the dungeon that you wanted to do and then start organizing a party in looking for group or trade chat, just a bunch of different chat tools. Maybe you found someone that was around questing near uh, where the dungeon was, and so you'd invite them and you'd kind of socially make a party, and then you go in. It would be pretty, maybe a 20-30 minute experience for the first few dungeons, and then they would get pretty long as you would get higher up. Even Dead Mines was almost an hour. Just getting to Dead Mines was a pretty long dungeon. um and when they introduced it in Wrath, it was a bit of a controversial change. I think at the time most people were really excited for it. I mean, having to walk all the way to the dungeon, you'd have to go. It could take you 15, 20 minutes just to get there. If you're in Duratar, or you're in the Barrens and you need to get to Shadowfang Keep, it's going to take you 15, 20 minutes just to get to Shadowfang Keep, to go all the way across to a different island. And so being able to just click a button to get into a queue, it removed the social friction of having to sit in chat looking for a tank or a healer to fill out your party. Usually it's very quick to find DPS, but surprise, surprise, finding supports are a little bit more challenging. And so generally the player base really, really liked that change. It brought a lot of benefits. And I think that in Wrath, Cata, Mop, Warlords of Draenor, it was kind of at its peak where you would use the tool and you would queue into a dungeon, and you could use it to level. One thing I'm noticing in playing Cata Classic is I'm able to just level as a healer. You couldn't do that in the original Classic. You couldn't spec all your points into discipline or holy and not have it take forever to kill mobs. You had to play shadow, and so when you did a dungeon, you were always doing it in the wrong spec, and so kind of 2/3 of the talent trees weren't even useful until close to max level. But now in Cata Classic, I spec'd into discipline at level 15 when the dungeon tool was available, and this is the only way I've leveled. And it's been so much fun to just have an experience where the mobs are appropriately level, like the difficulty is appropriate to my level. As my level gets higher, my character gets more powerful. And so if I queue into, Scarlet Armory at level 32, the mobs are like 3 levels higher than me. I'm getting whacked. I'm barely hitting any of my spells. But when I go into Scarlet Monastery at level 39, I just had one this morning, I'm whacking them. I'm getting them. And I can feel the power level of my character has increased. So the fact that the difficulty of the dungeons is static, but the power level of my character has increased, and I'm getting gear that's relevant, every single dungeon run feels meaningful. And even the levels are pretty quick. I mean, we have the Joyous Journeys buff, which increases your levels by 50% right now. And that is definitely speeds things up. Usually a dungeon will give me, at this point at level 40-ish, I'm getting about a level plus or minus depending on if I've gotten the dungeon quests, which they've now moved inside of the dungeon, which is amazing. Um, you don't have to be out here doing quests to, the first time. It's essentially a bonus to the first time that you do the dungeon. And so you get this huge benefit and reward, and it's really nice. I mean, I like playing a healer, I like playing supports, and this gives an option for supports to be able to level without having to go out into the open world and do regular questing. I mean, I've done every single quest in this game. I've got the lore master title on retail, and this gives a dynamic experience. It's really fun to be able to, I go into every dungeon and I don't know what kind of tank I'm going to get. I'm going to be honest with you. I've had tanks that don't know the route. I've had tanks that d- don't know what they're doing. They've never hit a defensive in their life. I've had tanks that had cloth gear. I've had tanks that they're if you pull it, you tank it kind of person. And it kind of offers some replayability, this queued in dungeon experience. It kind of offers some replayability where it's user generated content. Not in the strictest sense of the word, we're not making the content, but we're experiencing it together, and that makes it dynamic. I mean, if you go into like an Overwatch game, even though the objectives are different and the map is the same, the different heroes that you have, the different players that are on your team can drastically change your experience. So even though the environment is static, the people are the thing that make the game interesting and make it really replayable. And I think that Looking for Dungeon Tool just removes a lot of the friction to get to that experience. There are some cons to it though. I mean, it does make the world feel really small. I mean, I haven't really left Orgrimmar since getting there for the first time. I have mount riding, but I think I've been on my mount for about 5 minutes. It kind of just makes the world small, and it's kind of like a queue simulator, or feels more closer to that amusement park design that folks have kind of criticized WoW for. It's not, the world doesn't feel as alive. I'm not out there getting, trying to kill 10 bears, and seeing, getting ganked or seeing other people out in the open world, and they're not seeing me. So it definitely affects the open world. The other thing is that the social experience, you do lose a little bit when you're not finding a group and you're just kind of waiting around for the group to form. It's kind of like a little chat room where you're kind of looking for a tank. People are asking their guild. They're talking about how hard it is to get a tank. They're talking about the quests they need to do. It kind of puts you in like a lobby while you're just waiting for your group to form. And I wouldn't be surprised if there was a benefit to having something like that. Added back to retail or something along those lines, where you have that kind of like chat communication with your party members beforehand. But I mean, I don't know. Even looking at Mythic Plus, I'll join a group. It's a 12 or a 10, and we say Lust first pull, yeah, and then we complete the entire dungeon in silence, and then you just hear GG's at the end. That's about it. And we were in the social group. We were sitting in the group finding a tank. But I think, that experience of like Mythic Plus dungeons is a little bit different than this, where this is it's really chill. It allows you to kind of like take your time, and, you can explore the dungeons and you can do the quests. And in Mythic Plus, it's just how fast can we get. The second I'm in here, the thing I want to do the most is get out of here as fast as possible. And so I think you lose a little bit of that pace, where it feels like a Mythic Plus dungeon can be kind of exhausting, whereas I've done these looking for dungeon queues, and I'll be in there for 2 hours just listening to music, hanging out, chilling. Maybe I'm on Discord with my buddies, and we're hanging out, and it's not an extremely demanding, but it's a pretty rewarding process. So I mean, my experience has I've just been really pleasantly surprised with missing this. I think I've kind of missed this in retail, where, you know if you're not in Mythic Plus, then your the only queuable content is heroics, and heroics are just a speed run to the end. Um, Mythic Plus has kind of perforated its experience into all the different play styles for dungeons where people are just trying to get to the end of this thing as fast as possible. And they have the tools to do it, the item level banding, there is none, and so you queue into a heroic, and the tank is, you know 50 item levels higher than the way that the content is tuned to, and so he just pulls the entire dungeon. Everyone dies, but he kills everything, and so whatever. It's not really a fun experience, and it's not a great way of introducing people to WoW. I think that there are some changes that are coming with the next patch, with making time walking closer to the classic experience of the mobs hit harder, and there's been a lot of negative feedback to that, to where it's people just want to do the thing and get out as fast as possible. And I think that there is some merit to that in modern gaming, but there is something that's kind of special about being able to do this thing. And maybe it has to do with the rewards. Maybe time walking just doesn't feel necessarily rewarding. It doesn't make my character feel more powerful as I go through it. My character's power level increasing outside of time walking doesn't affect my power level inside time walking. So I'm literally only doing it for the rewards, and how it affects the other, forms of content in the game. I've just had a lot of fun with it. I have never played Discipline Priest, and being able to kind of learn the rotation, and it's changed throughout my leveling experience. Initially, I was just hitting renew on everyone to keep them topped because you don't have atonement. And then you get Holy Fire, and that adds some complexity to the rotation. And once you start getting atonement, then it's okay. Now it's interesting. And then once you start to get some of the more power word shield things, okay, now my rotation's kind of getting hot, right? Like I'm putting on power word shield, then I'm penance, then I'm casting Holy Fire, and I'm able to get 3 smites inside of the Holy Fire window. And that, I don't know, that's kind of just fun. It feels like there's a lot of buttons to push, and it's not just cast renew, and it's not the same thing the entire way through. I'm a little worried about leveling up even higher, because I've kind of at the point where I'm not getting any new abilities, and my rotation doesn't seem like it's going to be changing that much, and it's 40 more levels. So that was definitely a problem that I'm now remembering about this time, where you kind of get halfway there and you're like, oh, the levels slowed down and the abilities stopped coming, and this is kind of the maximum complexity is at around level 40, and the content's not super challenging. And retail tries to solve that by making the leveling about 10 hours long. So I don't know. I'm looking forward to it. I'm really looking forward to Mists of Pandaria Classic. One of the things about it is they have a hard mode dungeon that allows you to get into it via the looking for dungeon tool, which I'm kind of excited about. I know that they've had it for Wrath Classic and Kata Classic, but I haven't checked those out. I haven't really been playing, but I'm looking forward to that as a way of kind of getting through heroics, powering up my character, and then having the next step up that involves some kind of queuable content, and that's just really exciting for me. I'm really really stoked about that, and looking forward to it. I'm excited to see what it's like. I haven't played MoP since college, and didn't really play it that much when it was out. So that's kind of what I'm looking forward to. I hope y'all have a great day, and I'll talk to you later.